My name is James Wild, and today I'm going to be talking to you about FLEXRIDES, improving the shared ride experience. But before I get into it, I want to take you to a beautiful place. This is kind of what I think of when I think of vacation. It's peaceful, it's warm, it's comforting. But the harsh reality of it is, in order to go on vacation, you have to put up with a number of other things before you get there. It starts off, you spend a couple hours in an aluminum tube flying through the air. Then you end up in an airport filled with other stressed out people just trying to get wherever they're going. And then finally, you end up out on the curb just trying to get a ride to wherever your final destination is or to get home after a nice vacation. This last step is really where I wanted to spend the meat of my time and thesis and to create a better experience. Specifically, how can we get all these people out on the curb where they're going more efficiently? This picture is of people in a taxi line at Midway, and they're each going to get in their own car. They're going to add another car to the congestion of Chicago, which for everyone who's visiting is not great. And chances are a number of them are going to similar places. They're able to be grouped. They're able to go to similar places. And services exist called shared ride shuttles that do this. However, they're extremely underutilized despite being pretty prevalent. So I wanted to set out and create a better shared ride shuttle experience. Before I did that, though, I needed to figure out what the current experience is like. So I went out, I did interviews with current customers. I immersed myself in the experience. I became a customer myself. I used it a number of times. I also created a prototype experience here in Evanston, driving around my fellow EDI students to see what it was like to be a driver and get that perspective. From those experiences and that research, I came up with two really predominant themes that were present throughout all these experiences. And that was transparency is key, and a feeling of fairness is extremely important to the customer. So I'm going to go through some of the quotes that I heard and really drive home these 2 points. First off, a customer told me, what are these guys even doing? I don't know what's going on. This is kind of a disconnect in the system when a customer sees things happening but doesn't believe that it's in their best interests. Next, kind of a logical next step from this is I wonder if they've forgotten about me. This is something I know I've felt, and I know in many service experiences you feel something you might have fallen through the cracks, and that's not a good feeling. And finally, if I could tell when the driver was going to get here, I could plan my day better. Now, waiting for someone to come pick you up, waiting for any kind of service at your home is a pretty trying experience. You just feel like you're wasting your day. Now, on the fairness side of things, this customer hit it on the head. This is rip-off city. I feel like I'm getting ripped off right now. Obviously there was a pricing miscommunication, or the customer just doesn't trust that what they're paying is what the appropriate price is. So there's an opportunity there for sure. Additionally, tipping. I never know how much to tip, but I know that it's something I have to do. Tipping is extremely nuanced. In restaurants, it's pretty clear you're supposed to tip, although that's starting to change as well. But in transportation, people have different understandings of what they're supposed to do. So without that framework, it's a lot harder to deal with that situation. And finally, from the driver's perspective, I talked to a driver who'd been waiting in the airport for 5 hours to give someone a ride. He'd just been wasting his day around, and considering this is his livelihood, it was really hard for him to just waste his day like that. So, taking this research, I have 2 how might we statements. How might we increase transparency so that all stakeholders know what's happening and can help the system run more smoothly? And how might we give both customers and drivers a feeling of fairness and control of their experience throughout the process? So I'd like to present to you my prototype experience called FLEXRIDES. Meet Edward. Edward has just gotten off a plane in Chicago to visit some friends of his in Evanston and is trying to find a way to get to their house. As he comes down the escalator, he sees a display in the distance with a car on it. Maybe that's an option. It looks like this is a shared ride service, and there's already a ride going to Evanston. Less than 20 minutes till we head out. I better book my ride. As he's going through his options, he sees that he can save some money by getting dropped off with another passenger. Since it's close to his friend's place, he decides to go for it. After booking, Ed heads to the waiting area where he comfortably waits for his ride while watching some football. He sees his ride in the list of rides in the works and feels confident he'll leave on time. He gets a text to download the app and opens it up on his phone. He enters his confirmation number and can see all the details about his ride. Meanwhile, one of the drivers, Patrick, is waiting in the commercial vehicle lot at the airport. His in-car tablet is connected to the booking system and shows when rides are claimed and when rides appear. He's the next car in line and he decides to claim the ride to Evanston. As soon as Patrick claims the ride, Ed gets an alert telling him who his driver is and giving him an update on the ride. In the waiting area, Ed sees an alert that Evanston is about to leave. Patrick arrives to greet Ed and to bring him out to the car. On the ride, Ed is able to see how far they have to go and when he'll get dropped off. Ed gets an offer to book his return and to save some money, so he takes advantage of it. Since he decided to share a stop, he has a short walk to his apartment. But on the walk, he gets a notification to rate the driver. Patrick did a great job, so he rates him well and gives him a good tip. A few days later, Robert, a different driver, is planning out his week and he sees a ride from Evanston to the airport the next day. He decides to grab it. A few miles away, Ed gets an email saying that his ride is coming up tomorrow, so he doesn't forget. The next day, Ed is all packed up and relaxing, waiting for his ride. He opens up his phone and sees that Robert is on time and will be arriving in about 10 minutes. He starts to head downstairs and, in the elevator, gets an alert that Robert's arriving. He should head out to meet him. Great timing. Looks like he's the last pickup and they're heading straight to the airport. They arrive with plenty of time to spare, and while Ed waits for security, he opens up the app and gives Robert a positive rating. So, I hope you enjoyed seeing the vision of FLEXRIDES, and I know there was quite a bit in there. Happy to talk through more in the gallery when we go down there later. But I wanted to walk through quickly some of the specific touch points that Edward interacted with throughout the experience and how they tie back to the themes that I brought up earlier. So with regard to transparency, you saw Ed interacting with his app throughout the experience. He was able to pull information and see where his driver was and what the status of his ride was at any given point. But he was also alerted when there were things that he should be doing or when the driver was arriving. Additionally, in the background, transparency can actually help the system run more efficiently. Ed saw that there was already a ride going to Evanston, and he decided to join that ride. He got a shorter wait time, but also more passengers ended up in that ride, making it better for the driver. On the other side of things, he was incentivized to book his return trip. This gets more drivers back to the airport and also makes Ed feel like he's getting a deal. On the fairness side, Ed made a choice to get dropped off not exactly where he wanted to end up, but he wanted to save some money by getting dropped off where someone else was. This is something that's not really present in current options, and it gives customers the choice to save a little bit of money and make that sacrifice on their own. Later on, he was shown exactly what that rate was, so there was no question of what it was for or how much he was paying. And finally, the feedback mechanism. This is a little bit subtle in the video, but Patrick got a really great rating. And at the bottom, it was suggested that he give a 20% gratuity. Later on, Robert got a pretty good rating, but he only got a 10% gratuity. This is only a suggestion. Ed could have gone in and changed whatever he wanted. However, it gives the customer an idea of what's appropriate, and it gives the drivers a better idea of how well they've done. So that's kind of the broad vision of what FLEXRIDES could be, but companies can't spend a ton of money and develop things immediately, so what can companies do right now to start making those improvements? First off, communicate your price more clearly to your customers. It's terrible when people think it's a rip-off, and often it's not. It's just not clear to the customer what's going on. Next, create a feedback mechanism, even if it's not a full-fledged app. Make it a common practice for customers to tell their driver how they've done or to tell the company how their experience has gone. And finally, more holistically, create a very customer service-driven environment in your company. Communicate that to the drivers and the employees, and tell them that that'll make the system run a lot more smoothly overall. Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed seeing FLEXRIDES. I'm happy to talk more about it later. Thank you.